Every day, UPS delivers 22 million packages. Behind each one is a quiet decision. Which truck, which route, which turn. So how do you route over 130,000 vehicles to millions of addresses every single day without everything falling apart? Today, we're looking at the invisible machine that makes this work. A system called ORION. And the surprising rule that says, don't turn left. It starts with a problem so big it took 10 years to solve. Imagine you're a UPS driver. You have 120 stops today. How many different ways could you sequence those stops? The answer? A number with almost 200 digits. More possible routes than there are atoms in the observable universe. Think about that. You could spend the entire age of the universe trying routes, and you still wouldn't find the perfect one. This is called the traveling salesman problem, the puzzle. Find the shortest route that visits every stop exactly once. It's one of the classic challenges in computer science. And at the scale UPS operates, billions of packages a year, billions of miles driven, it's not just a math puzzle, it's the difference between profit and loss. For decades, UPS relied on something simpler: experience. Veteran drivers knew their routes. They knew which streets got congested at 3 p.m., which buildings had difficult parking, where the dogs were. They had mental maps built over years, and those maps worked. But experience doesn't scale, and UPS needed to scale. In 2003, UPS started building something new. They called it ORION, On-Road Integrated Optimization and Navigation. The team was small: operations researchers, engineers, software developers, people who understood both the math and the reality of the road. Their goal: create an algorithm that could calculate the optimal route for every driver every day. The first prototypes failed. The routes looked optimal on paper, but they were impossible to drive. They followed outdated rules. They ignored local realities. Drivers ignored them. So the team went back to the beginning. Instead of starting with rules, they started with observation. What did experienced drivers actually do? What worked and why? The team grew. 5 people became 30, then 50. Eventually, over 700. It took 10 years, $250 million in investment. But when ORION finally launched in 2013, ORION processes billions of data points every day. GPS data from every vehicle, historical delivery records, real-time traffic, weather conditions, package volumes, time windows. Each driver carries a handheld device. It's called a DIT ad. It feeds real-time data into the system: package sizes, delivery windows, customer requests. For each driver, ORION analyzes over 200,000 possible routes. Every morning, the system generates a sequence, not just where to go, but in what order and by what path. What does this look like in practice? Let's say you're a driver in Atlanta. You've got 120 stops. ORION knows which packages are time sensitive. It knows which stops are businesses that close at 5. It knows where traffic slows down at noon. It takes all of that and builds a route that works. Not perfect, not optimal in some abstract way, but drivable. Then in 2020, UPS deployed an upgrade: dynamic routing. Before, routes were set at the start of the day. Now they update continuously. A new pickup request comes in, the route adjusts automatically. The result? An additional 2 to 4 miles saved per driver per day. That might not sound like much. Let me show you the math. 2 miles per driver times 100,000 drivers times 250 working days a year. That's 50 million miles every year, just from that one upgrade. Now here's the part that sounds almost absurd. In 2004, UPS decided their drivers would stop turning left. Well, almost. About 90% of turns made by UPS drivers are now right turns. Left turns only happen when absolutely necessary. Why? Left turns mean crossing traffic. They mean waiting at lights. They mean idling. And when you're idling, you're burning fuel. They're also dangerous. According to New York City officials, left turns are 3 times more likely to cause a fatal pedestrian crash than right turns. So ORION is built to avoid left turns, a series of right-hand loops. It might look longer on a map. Sometimes it's longer, but when you're running over 130,000 trucks, the savings add up. You might think, does this actually work? Mythbusters tested it. They found that avoiding left turns saved fuel, even when the total distance was greater. It's one of those things that only makes sense at scale. When ORION first rolled out, not everyone was thrilled. Drivers who had been running the same route for 10 or 20 years weren't eager to be told what to do by software. And honestly, they weren't always wrong. The early versions made mistakes, suggested illegal turns, ignored meal breaks. UPS had to change the framing. Jack Levis, the manager who led the ORION team, put up sheets in distribution centers that said, "Beat the computer." Instead of "the computer knows better," it became a challenge. ORION would predict how many miles your route should take. Your job? Do better. One driver's route usually took 150 miles. ORION said he could do it in 140 miles. One day, he came back and told Levis the system was no good because he'd done it in 135 miles. He still doesn't credit ORION. To him, it's just another input alongside his intuition. And maybe that's the point. The best systems don't replace human judgment. They give humans better information to work with. So what did all of this add up to? Let me break it down. Since ORION's full deployment, UPS has saved approximately 100 million miles per year. That's 10 million gallons of fuel. 100,000 metric tons of carbon emissions. Gone. In dollars, over $300 million in annual savings on a $250 million investment. By 2015, just 2 years after launch, ORION had already saved more than $320 million. The system had paid for itself. And that 2020 dynamic routing upgrade, that added another 50 to 100 million miles in annual savings. Let's step back. What UPS built with ORION is a case study in how optimization works at scale. Routing at scale is an impossibly complex problem, but it can be tamed with algorithms. The best solutions come from observing reality, not following rules. UPS didn't start with theory. They started by watching what drivers actually did. And here's another thing. Small optimizations compound into massive savings. Avoiding left turns sounds trivial. Saving 2 miles per route sounds incremental. But at scale, it's millions of miles, millions of gallons, millions of dollars. But there's one more lesson. Technology works best when it enhances human judgment, not replaces it. Beat the computer wasn't just a slogan. It was a recognition that drivers bring something the algorithm doesn't. Context, intuition, local knowledge. Every day, millions of packages arrive at homes and businesses. And behind each one is a quiet system, invisible, reliable, constantly optimizing. That's the machine behind the machine. If you found this interesting, there are more stories like this coming. We're exploring the quiet systems behind credit cards, retail inventory, barcodes, and more. Subscribe if you want to see them. If there's a system you've wondered about, something invisible that makes the world work, leave it in the comments. I'm always looking for the next quiet machine to explore. Thanks for watching. Take care.